enjoy this first Orchid Society meeting in person for a long time. If you like Daddy's videos, please subscribe.
I'm gonna go stand out here.
Okay, so I should stand up there?
Well, you can go stand out here so you can.
Yeah, Seattle on a summer afternoon in July, it's quite hot. So it's just very easy to handle. And you might think they're a little insignificant or something, but they're absolutely not. And they are the fastest growing group of cymbidiums in the world now. There are more people in Queensland and South Africa, places in China, places like that, Florida, warm areas of Colombia, that buy these cymbidiums and really like them. So it's a very much the cutting edge development for us now is in the warm tolerant types. We have the regular ones too. We produce all the cymbidium, all the different types of cymbidiums, but tonight we're talking about specifically the more miniature ones. And we brought a plant table along where you can, all of those are miniature types as well. It'll double the number of chromosomes. And so both of these are tetraploid forms of what was originally a diploid hybrid. And strongly fragrant, photographed in Colombia. Very small plant. The plant's probably only about 12 inches high, and the flowers are very small. There is a big increase in, people have got smaller houses, smaller greenhouses, smaller everything, and smaller cars to take them to the orchid shows. So, the world is certainly changing towards more compact plants. The old days of cymbidiums that you had to carry, with a wheelbarrow, they're gone, fortunately. One of those little miniature humulum type hybrids, and Melanie was my first secretary in El Retiro. She's part-time secretary, and so this is the most fragrant orchid we have in the greenhouse. This is and it's an interesting hybrid because only one came out alba white like this. The cross, the cross gave 6% of albas supposedly, but we only ended up with one. This was it, and so. Not very good photography, but that's been corrected. I've got a better camera. You look at that and you say, well, that's certainly no alba there, but actually, and the ancestry of that is carrying alba genes. So in the next generation from this plant, we'll be looking to have a pendulous. What it looks like there's the pen at the bottom for scale. So you can see it's a very, very small plant, a very, very small flower, and it's interesting because you've got three interesting names there. Gary Cooper was a movie star, Don Wimber was an orchid star, and Tiny Tim, well, I don't know what sort of star he was. But this is a real cute little thing. Milton Carpenter knows Milton Carpenter, he's still alive, thank goodness. He lost his wife recently, but he's 92, born on Christmas Day. He shares that with a few important people. And it's a very interesting orchid. It's got a very pretty lip. And it loves the wall, doesn't have any changes miniature line, and we named it to stand laurel. So I love laurel and hardy. I resemble hardy a lot more than laurel, but we'll get a big stand at about 6 inches across, and we'll call that Oliver Hardy in due course. One of the warmer growers again, but it's a white miniature, very pretty little flower. And we sold hundreds of plants of those, and not one person has registered a hybrid from it yet. We've got some hybrids, but we haven't registered them. We will, but I don't know. I sometimes wonder where people, do they not see an orchid the way I see them? Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. So, but I think it's just again that people haven't. Looked the average. The quality is very long lasting, and one of the important characteristics of a cymbidium of any type is that it lasts. I'm not interested in flowers. Some of the species last about 10 or 12 days. Did any members of the Orchid Digest here? Orchid Digest? Do you get the Orchid Digest? Okay. The thing came out on cymbidiums. I was looking at it last night. What a load of rubbish. And it's interesting because it blooms twice a year, and it bloomed at Thanksgiving last year, so it's blooming a couple of weeks early. But this type of color, they grow it in Europe. This is a commercial orchid that we sell into Holland, and this is a sort of an interesting one because it's got a lot of Cymbidium matidum in it. The matidum is tough. It comes from Australia, so it needs a kick in the in the pot occasionally. You know, it's a really tough orchid, lasts a long time. So this is 1/4 Matadum on one side, and the other side is half Matadum. So you've got a lot of Matadum influence in this orchid. Amazingly good shape for that type of flower. You know, it's a lot of those things are spindly and thin, and this lasts well too. This flower lasts for about 30 days on the plant. So that's a big improvement over Enthifolium, which lasts less than 2 weeks. It's probably the best Cymbidium seedling we've bloomed this year. And it's an interesting combination because it has Parisiae manager, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and Cymbidium candiliculatum and Cymbidium devonianum as a parent. One of the great features of this plant is the flowers last more than 2 months. Very, very long lasting. And that is due primarily to the Cymbidium candiliculatum, the Australian species. Candiliculatum is a really tough customer. It's used to growing in the, in the hot, dry parts of Australia. And this is like the sort of, people say, oh, I got my golden elf flowering. Well, it's a great orchid, but it doesn't last very long. And this is like the new, improved, super duper golden elf. So it looks like golden elf, but it's about twice the size, and it has twice the lasting quality, which is very important. And it has some fragrance as well. So this line, we love these. These are very bright and cheery colours. This is named for an Australian. I don't do that very often. But Gladys Moncrief was a singer. She was a very good Australian singer. She was built like me, kind of solid, but she was a great singer, very famous. Very blooming type that we use in Europe, and this even judging, it's probably almost good enough shape. So it's almost an award quality flower, but this is a pure commercial flower that we pick and use. It's used a lot in Holland, particularly in the months of October, November. Judge Caprio in the East Coast, he's a legend, absolute legend. He's one of these guys that says a judge should be nice to people and he should help people and respect the military and everything. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. There's not many saints around, I'm not eligible, but I'm sure this Frank Caprio is a saint. He's a wonderful judge. Anyway, pay for him. This is probably the brightest or the best of the warm tolerant cymbidiums we've ever seen. He's there. Just 3 species, Candiliculatum, Parisiae, and Cymbidium grandiflorum. Now, if you read the books, they'll say in England, grandiflorum has to be grown cold and da-da-da-da-da. Not true. Not true at all. You make the hybrid with this, and this thing flowers in the warm, no problem, long-lasting flower. And it's a hybrid just between 2 species. One, Cymbidium insigne, and the other one is Cymbidium bicolor. Now, bicolor's got bulbs pretty good size, but this particular plant was collected by a Thai gentleman, which we named the Orchid for, and he gave me Gili. Hopefully you remember he was a pretty good tenor. We named the cross for him, and this has got some Matadum in it, which you'll see the Matadum in the lip there in the yellow. That's Cymbidium Matadum, gives that sort of yellowness to the lip, that intense yellow. The most sincere and genuine people you'll find in the movie business today. There's a lot of phonies out there, as you well know. But this is an interesting hybrid because even though the bulbs are kind of big, you get 2 or 3 spikes on each bulb. So that compensates, if you're going to have a big bulb, you've got to have some other pluses, and that's the plus. Gaianum lasts 6 to 8 to 9 days. No good. No good at all. So we made a cross with Don Wimber. Don Wimber is a Matadum hybrid. It lasts for about 2 months. So we get something now, this is the hybrid here, that lasts about a month. But it's a little more typical. You see up there, it's a hexaploid. It's not a tetraploid, it's a hexaploid. So we treated it with a rhizolin. It was a triploid. We crossed a tetraploid Don Wimber with a diploid Cymbidium Gaianum. We ended up with a hexaploid. Then what do we do? Well, now we put on that a diploid. Take a diploid Cymbidium, put that on it. And you end up with something in the next generation that is tetraploid, grows just fine, normal speed and everything, but it's 3/4 warm growing and 1/4 cool growing, which means again, it will grow anywhere in the hot place. Recently, it's a warm growing intermediate, lovely color. It had 37 flowers on the spike. I've taken the growth to meristem often, and the lab said, we're not too sure. The growth, the eyes are very small, so we may have to wait another year. They haven't said it's died yet, but they're not sure that the growth is going to take. But we have a customer in Australia that has already ordered. Interesting line because it's got another species in there, Cymbidium faberi, and faberi is very fragrant. So you have lovely fragrance. It's alba. This is a green-yellow alba, and it's just a little different. One parent's Placidia Domingo. I'm afraid he's blotted his copybook a little bit with the recent news of his misbehaviour. But anyway, it's too late. And Tom Petty, of course, is a different sort of music. He certainly wouldn't be singing the same as Placidia Domingo. But we put the two of them together there, and it's a very pretty little flower. You know, it's a really a purple. This is award quality if you're judging, and this is named for a local girl in El Retiro that runs a coffee shop there, and her name really is Sarah Sierra, and she's very, very nice, very friendly, and this is it's a beautiful flower, really shapely and little cupped, but that's popular with a lot of people. You know, in a cut flower, the more cut flower ships more easily. When you cut it, put it in a box, and you put a sleeve on it, it travels better. Flowers that are more open and the segments out, they break more easily, because if you've got the Orchid Digest, you can read a load of rubbish there about this orchid. There is no such orchid. There is no such orchid that they're talking about this sanderi. They show a picture of the diploid form of this orchid, and they call it Cymbidium sanderi. That is total nonsense. The original orchid was called Cymbidium parishii sanderi, and it was one plant collected in India and never was collected again. Never, that actual orchid was never collected ever again. And there's another orchid that they call parishii, which is actually a hybrid of Cymbidium viburnum, that has 5 or 6 or 7 flowers on the spike. Totally different thing. And they're conflating those two orchids. It's nonsense. It's written by people that don't look at herbarium sheets and don't grow orchids. And so this is the forend. This is the one we call imaminogen of the parishii sanderi, and the forend is British. And this has 15 flowers on the spike. This is the tetraploid. The original diploid had 19 flowers on the spike. Not warm tolerant, these are just regular miniature cymbidiums. This is another one of those hybrids I told you about. In this case, I used a hexaploid as one parent, and the other parent was a diploid Cymbidium pumilum, a little miniature species from Japan. This I photographed in Holland in March. Terrible name. This was registered, I think, in 1917 or something like that, and it's called Insignigrinum. What a really imaginative, romantic, wonderful name that stupid person named it. But it's a cute little thing. It's very small, probably not more than 12 inches to the tip of the leaves. So very, very small. It's a commercial type, it's a pot plant type, very compact, upright spike, no stake. You have any hybrid. This is Tom Petty itself. It's a very cute orchid. But in California, it was white. It's white. And I'm thinking, have I mixed the label up or something? Then I realized, of course, in California when it blooms in December. How long's the day in December? You're about to find out. It's quite short. Whereas in Colombia, this is blooming always in a 12-hour day. So it comes more pink. Interesting, light influences color in all orchids, not just Cymbidium. This is a Tom Petty hybrid, and first one I bloomed to the cross, and I think it's going to be a very, very good pairing. That color with that lip, very dramatic, and I can't wait to look. I've got more in spike, but I've only seen one. So I photographed that a couple of weeks ago. And one of these parents is Kaylee, which was, if you know, involved in orchids in California. Bay Breeze was my friends in the greenhouse business in Salinas. This again is named for the Bay Breeze, the Kuramuras, their granddaughter. This is a hybrid. This should have been pendulous. Genetically, we would have thought it would have been pendulous, but named for him, the former mayor of Marin, where it was, no, it wasn't Marin, it was on the coast. He was in, it was one of the California cities. There's a great cross. This is named by some of you would have met Kevin Hipkins, I think, guy from Australia. He makes me look like a midget. He was, about 6'5" and about 4 foot across, and he's a tremendous guy. And we lost him a couple of years ago. He died stupidly. He died in hospital with a heart attack. Not as a result of a heart attack. He was in there, and that would suggest to me that the hospital was a little bit incautious in not watching him, because he shouldn't have died in a hospital in a situation like that. He's going to be marketed in the Netherlands. So here's an interesting thing. There's 2 flowers there. Now, if I was judging, I could only award the one on the left. I could only award the one on the left. But if you said, which one do you want to take home? I want the one on the right. So never let people tell you, oh, this has got an award and it's good. You judge for yourself. Do you like it? This had 22 flowers on this spike. So it's got a dramatic lip, it's got clean color, and in the background of that is actually Cymbidium manadum. But the bulb on this is not coarse, it's a medium-sized bulb. It's a nice thing. You ever seen the movie Assassination Tango? Robert Duvall. And it turned out that Robert Duvall could dance the tango better than you or I. Very, very good tango dancer. So this movie was about Robert Duvall going down to Argentina and involving the tango. This, again, you like it or you don't like it. Don't have to apologize if you don't like it. I think it's kind of cute. It's got eye-catching, and this is one of our color lines. It's got a very small lip. That's just negative if you were looking at it from a judging viewpoint. But as a flower and as a color, it's dramatic and different. This is a pretty nice thing. I didn't make the cross. I gave my friend some pollen, and he took it back to Holland and he made the cross. But it's and he named it for his aunt. So I didn't meet his aunt, but that's how the name came along. But it's which is I can tell you too many stories about. But a guy in New Zealand stole the plant from me. I wasn't very happy about that. That was in 2000. Stole the plant, and by a very roundabout way, I got the plant back. And we're not friends anymore. And he didn't do any breeding with it, but I sure did. And it's been a tremendous parent. So this Magic Devon is just, it grows like a weed and flowers very freely. So this is one, that Devonianum line, the Devon Gala. We've made many, many crosses with Devon Gala. And it's strongly pendulous. So if you like pendulous, if you like upright, you won't like it. But in the pendulous types, it's really it's still a very, very. Say, oh my goodness, what went wrong there? What went wrong there? Well, again, you're seeing a work in progress. It's one step away from the payoff. The name is important. The woman this is named for is a woman that lives in Perth, Australia. She's a doctor. She's English born. She got the award, the Order of Australia Award, which they get one English, and I don't. I'm very, very bad at Spanish. But my driver knows English really well. So he's benefited. I haven't learned too much. La Medina means, I think, the snack, a little snack. And so this is the name of a restaurant in town, one of my friends own. And this lip is just electric, it's got that. And that is actually, the grandparent of that is Cymbidium lowianum, the species size. So this is 2 generations on from Cymbidium devonianum. And, instead of having a brownish sort of segments, we've got almost white, creamy white, and you've got that dramatic lip. Now again, who was Sharona Alpert? You remember the song, those of you that are sort of about my age, My Sharona? With a really vibrant beat, that was Sharona Alpert. I never met her, but it just seemed like too good a name to not pass up. So this part flowering there, part flowering there, part flowering there. And then, you know, it just rotates like that. Now they do develop a little quicker. It's like from when they appear, they develop a little quicker because you've got a constant 12-hour day, 12-hour night. There's no slowing down here. They initiate the spikes, and as they come into winter, especially for the normal blooming ones, you know, the spikes slow down because the days are short and it's cool. But down there, they just go, you know, the spikes just develop up and open, develop up and open like that. So it is different. You have to make some changes. Yeah, I think where you go. You go from Seattle to Santa Barbara, you have to learn how to grow there. You go from Santa Barbara to Seattle, you really have to learn how to grow. Much tougher. But don't forget, you know, Beagle Orchid Company on Vashon grew fabulous cymbidiums. So when I was a young fellow out of university and you know, running a big greenhouse in Eugene, in Oregon, I used to come to fields and marvel how well they grew the cymbidium stems because the sun doesn't void. They tend to flower earlier. The ones in the warm tolerant, they're flowering. They tend to flower more in the pre-Christmas time in the northern hemisphere. So the sun itself, the high level of sun, and all those sort of things will help greatly with the flowering. The ones that flower after the winter solstice, the ones that flower in the warm tolerant, they tend to be more the Cymbidium and the Canaliculatum hybrids and those ones. And again, the flowers are already made. The flowers are already made. They just develop a little more slowly. So that, then they will appear in February, March, April. But they're much easier to bloom. I would say as a group, the warm tolerant are much easier to flower. Much easier. They're less fussy about traditional cymbidiums. They want a spring, a summer, and a fall. You know, they've got to have that defined fertilizer change. It is quite important.
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. We really enjoyed it. I'm personally